Matt is online from beautiful Colusa. Hi, Matt. Welcome to the Armstrong and Getty Show. How are you?
Doing very well. Hey, I think I understand why they say when, like, Janet Napolitano gets to the federal level, she changes her mind on, the issue of immigration.
Why is that?
After reading the government's reaction to their lawsuit, they're specifically citing 8 U.S.C. 1182 that says Congress has exclusive authority and determining that unlawful presence standing alone should not subject an alien to criminal penalties. They've also said it's specifically not a criminal penalty to move between the states and not a criminal penalty to seek work in the country.
Now,
These aren't their arguments. These are sections they're citing that says it cannot be a crime for the state to do because the feds say it's not a crime.
Okay, that was the old double reverse. Now, the federal statute that you cited,
correct,
that says what?
Congress, which holds exclusive authority for establishing alien status categories and setting the conditions of aliens' entry and continued presence, has affirmatively decided that unlawful presence standing alone should not subject an alien to criminal penalties and incarceration, although unlawful presence may subject the alien to civil remedy of removal.
Okay. And in your, but that's not the argument made, I don't think.
Their first
I'm flipping through it. Go ahead.
The first argument they made is that the executive branch has sole discretion on setting priorities for executing the laws,
right?
And that their priority is to go after illegal aliens who are involved in terrorism or serious violent felonies.
Right.
Their second argument is that Congress has already established affirmatively that being here illegally is not a crime.
Okay.
And that trying to get jobs here is not a crime.
Okay, there are two directions this discussion should go, Matt. And let's keep number one short because I want to make sure I get to number two.
Okay.
Number one, do you think it's a pretty strong case that the Justice Department has on that question, citing that federal statute?
I do.
Okay. Well, if that is the specific wording of the statute that I'm not familiar with, I think you're right. The way I happen to be looking at an account from the New York Times on what their strategy is. It strikes me as extraordinarily weak, but this is probably just bad journalism, and I will accept your judgment for now because I don't know any better.
This was very eye-opening for me also.
Yeah, which leads me to section 2 of my discussion with you, which is, how many Americans do you think realized Congress said what they said in that statute?
Enough that when I started reading it, I started copying and pasting it, saying, I can't believe this. I want to show this to other people.
Why do you know so much about this, Matt? Are you
I'm studying for the bar, and I was just looking at the procedure issues.
Yeah, I thought I recognized you. So you, as an obviously well-informed fellow and somebody engaged in the studying of these issues, had no idea that Congress had affirmatively stated that it's cool to be an illegal.
Yeah, what they stated is that if you use false documents, if you try to get here illegal, if you cross the border after being told that you can't come across,
right,
that's the crime itself.
Right.
They've also even added some continuing language in 8 U.S.C. 1324 that encouraging, inviting, calling, allowing, or enabling an alien to be, for basic living expenses, there is it's not going to be a crime also under that section.
When were those laws passed? Do you know? Do you have that?
I haven't. I'm taking the Justice Department's word that the sections they're citing are the actual legislation, but I haven't gone back and read the actual legislation.
Yeah.
And what surprised me was these were not arguments made. These are their statements of their points of authority saying you don't have the right to do this pursuant to this section.
Right. Okay. See, this is the problem when you get into legal discussions on morning talk radio. There could be a tweak to the Arizona law, some fairly subtle changes in the wording that I think would get around that problem.
Well, the problem with the Arizona legislation isn't just the detention issues with reasonable suspicion. They also have some language about not impeding traffic when picking up people for work, and there's actually some day labor prohibitions within that language that people aren't talking about that are also being attacked.
Well, yeah, but let's not get off on that because there's too much there. But what I was going to say is the law, SB 1070, as I recall, actually declares it a crime to be in Arizona illegally, which Congress has stated is not kosher.
It just simply says here that despite Congress's considered judgment to not criminalize such status, therefore SB 1070 would interfere with federal policy and prerogatives.
Okay.
He also cites that the immigration policy is necessary for foreign relations, foreign commerce, and its impact on tourism.
All right, shut up. Not you, them. All right, Matt, thanks. Appreciate it. Boy, there's half a dozen tangents to go off on, legally speaking. The idea that Arizona's saying we will aid the federal government in executing stated law, the legal argument that somehow usurps the federal power is ridiculous. It's laughable. In fact, the federal immigration law requires it. But if his reading of that statute's correct, that's extraordinary. I hope Eric Holder wins, but people won't understand why. But they'll understand then that Congress has made that law. Jim from Sacto says he's wrong.
Yeah, I think he's wrong, and I don't think he's going to do so hot if he legally analyzes things the way he's doing it when he goes into the bar.
Talk to us.
The section that he just read out of the federal law says that it's not a criminal violation to be in the United States illegally. It also, if you read it very carefully and listen to it, it says that standing alone, that's not a criminal violation. So if someone commits a crime and they are determined to be illegal, at that point in time, then they suffer the civil remedy of deportation. Now, if you come across them without them committing a crime and they're here illegally, they can also suffer the civil penalty of deportation. So, in fact, being here illegally is a civil violation, not a criminal violation.
And so you think SB 1070 squares with the federal statute?
Right. I think it's just basically a recitation of the federal statute on a state level.
Right. I'm looking at this editorial in the New York Times about Justice Department's legal arguments in the case about the federal powers, et cetera, and they strike me as laughable. I mean, Arizona in saying all our coppers have to execute federal immigration law, essentially, how that could be a usurpation of the federal powers, I just don't get that argument at all.
Right. It doesn't make a great deal of sense. In a previous life, I was in law enforcement, and we used to arrest them continuously and book them under 8 U.S.C. 1325 INA, which was the Immigration Naturalization Act.
Mm-hmm.
And that was during the days of the Bracero program, and they would just use our system. They'd come across the border illegally. They'd work through the season, most of them. Then they'd save just enough money to get a 12-pack, get intoxicated, get arrested for being drunk in public, and then we send them off to INS and they'd get a ride home.
Well, number one, that's interesting. Number two, quit criticizing my hobbies. But
okay. The second thing is everybody focuses this just specifically on Mexicans. And that's not our big problem. Right now, we've got El Salvadorans, we've got Guatemalans, we've got Russians, we've got Arabic country people.
Chinese, don't forget the Chinese. Right.
Oh, yeah, can't forget the Chinese, the Vietnamese, all of them. It's not a Mexican problem. It is an immigration problem, and we need to refocus in that direction.
Well stated, Jim. Very nice. Thank you very much for the call. See you later. Marshall, what are our headlines this hour?
Well, the U.S. is gearing up for impending cyber attacks, and the RAND report on the effects legalizing pot could have on California. We have the parts not getting a lot of play coming up in about 5 minutes from now.
I want the parts that are getting a lot of play, the parts that are not getting a lot of play, the parts that are getting some play. I want a full understanding of this issue. Get to work.
They'll be in there.
Thank you, Marshall. That's coming up next on the Armstrong and Getty Show. This is the Armstrong and Getty Show. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to unleash some fabulous best of at you during the 9 o'clock hour. Jack is on vacation. Tomorrow's show already got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what country has 1 billion% inflation?
1 billion%?
It has to do with the list of the worst despots, the worst dictators on earth. Some of the names on the list may surprise you. Some will not. But one country run by a murderous thug goon has 1 billion% inflation, which really takes the fun out of saving your paycheck. You know?
Yeah.
And then one note before we get to Marshall's news, I buried the lead a little bit on the federal Justice Department challenge to the Arizona law by the liar Eric Holder and his lying friend in the White House. The headline in the New York Times is, Arizona challenge does not focus on profiling. It mentions it briefly in passing.
Right.
There is nothing about ethnic profiling or discrimination or anything in the legal challenge. All of that out of the White House and the Justice Department was just hot air. It was just bull crap. There's nothing there. That was lying. So take that for what it's worth. Right now, Marshall Phillips has the other news of the day. Marshall?